Okay, so I'm recording this because I don't know what else to do. It's 6:47 inches the morning. I haven't slept. I can't sleep because something happened yesterday that I can't explain and I can't keep quiet about it. And honestly, I don't even know if I should be telling you this, but I feel like I have to. So, um, before I get into what happened, just let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I need to know I'm not alone in this. And if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing. It helps give me the strength to speak my truth, because what I'm about to tell you, it's going to sound crazy. I know it sounds crazy, but I swear to you, this happened. Okay, here we go. So yesterday it was just a completely ordinary moment, right? I wasn't praying, I wasn't fasting. I wasn't even thinking about spiritual things. I was sitting in my car in a grocery store parking lot, scrolling through my phone, waiting for the rain to let up before I made a run for the entrance. Just normal Tuesday afternoon stuff. And then everything changed. I mean, everything. The parking lot disappeared. Like, just gone. The rain stopped mid-fall. I'm not kidding, the droplets were just suspended in the air like glass beads. My phone screen went dark, and I was somewhere else. Completely somewhere else. And I want to be clear about something before I go any further, okay? I'm not the kind of person who has visions. I'm not a mystic. I'm not someone who sees angels on a regular basis or hears audible voices from heaven. I'm an actor. I play Jesus on television, which means, yeah, I spend a lot of time thinking about him, studying him, trying to understand him. But I've always kept a healthy skepticism about people who claim to have supernatural experiences until I had one myself. So I'm standing there, and I wasn't sitting anymore. I'm standing at what I can only describe as gates, but not like physical gates made of metal or wood, something more substantial than that, more real, if that makes sense. They were massive, so tall I couldn't see the top, so wide they seemed to stretch beyond the edges of my vision, and they were beautiful in a way that made everything I'd ever called beautiful seem like a rough draft. The gates were open, wide open, and through them I could see. I don't have words for what I saw. It was like light, but not light, color, but not any color that exists here, music, but not sound, you know? It was like trying to describe a symphony to someone who's never heard music, or a sunset to someone who's never seen color. I can't do it justice. And there were people, thousands of them, millions, maybe, streaming through the gates in this river of humanity that seemed endless. Every age, every ethnicity, every era of history. I saw people in modern clothes walking beside people in ancient robes. I saw children holding hands with elderly saints. I saw faces that were just radiant with joy, with relief, with the kind of happiness that comes from finally arriving home after a long, difficult journey. And I was transfixed. I couldn't look away. And I felt something rising in my chest, this longing that was so intense it was almost painful. I wanted to be in that river. I wanted to walk through those gates. I wanted to see what was on the other side. But I wasn't moving. I was just standing still, watching, like an observer, not a participant. And then I heard his voice. Jonathan. I turned, and Jesus was standing beside me. And I know how that sounds, okay? I know. But it wasn't the Jesus I portray on screen. It wasn't the Jesus of paintings or stained glass windows. But it was unmistakably him. I knew him the way you know someone you've spent your whole life with, even if you've never seen their face. Does that make sense? Lord, I said, and my voice sounded strange to my own ears. What is this? This is what you asked to see, he said quietly, and I was confused. I didn't ask to see anything. You did, he said. Every time you wondered if people really understand what's at stake. Every time you questioned whether your work matters. Every time you felt the weight of representing me and wondered if anyone was really paying attention. You were asking to see this. I looked back at the gates, at the endless stream of people flowing through them. Heaven's gates, I said. It wasn't a question. Yes, he said. But watch. Keep watching. So I watched. And as I watched, I began to notice something. The stream of people wasn't quite as dense as it had been. There were gaps appearing, spaces between groups. The river was thinning. What's happening? I asked. He didn't answer, he just pointed. And then I saw them. People approaching the gates but not entering. They would get close, so close, and then stop. Some looked confused, some looked angry, some looked terrified. But none of them were going through. Why aren't they going in? I asked. Watch, he said again. So I watched as this man approached the gates. He was well dressed, confident, walking with the stride of someone who expected to be welcomed. He reached the threshold and stopped, like he'd hit an invisible wall. Lord, he called out. Lord, open the gates. I'm here, I served you. I went to church every Sunday. I gave money, I read my Bible. Let me in. But the gates didn't open for him, and I heard a voice, not Jesus' voice, but a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, say words that made my blood run cold. I never knew you. Depart from me. The man's face went white. What? No. You know me. I know you. I called you Lord, I did everything right. But he was already moving backward, pulled by some force I couldn't see, away from the gates, away from the light, away from home. And he wasn't alone. There were others, so many others, a woman who had been a worship leader, but I led thousands in worship. I wrote songs about you. How can you not know me? A man who had been a pastor. I preached your word for 40 years. I built a church. I baptized hundreds. You have to know me, a young person who had grown up in church. I was raised in a Christian home. I went to Christian school. I know all the right answers. This isn't fair. One by one, they were turned away, and with each rejection, I felt something breaking inside me, because these weren't people who had obviously rejected Jesus, you know. These were people who thought they knew him, people who had used his name, people who had done religious things, people who looked from the outside like they should be walking through those gates. But they weren't, and the voice kept saying the same devastating words, I never knew you. I turned to Jesus and I could feel tears on my face. Lord, I don't understand. They called you Lord. They did religious things. They believed in you. Why? Did they? He interrupted gently. Did they really believe in me? Or did they believe in a version of me they created? Did they know me, or did they know about me? What's the difference? I asked, though I was starting to understand. The difference, he said, is everything. He gestured toward the gates, and the scene shifted. Now I could see both sides, those who were entering and those who were being turned away. And I began to notice the differences. Those who entered weren't necessarily the ones who had done the most impressive religious activities. Some of them had been faithful in small, hidden ways. Some had struggled with doubt. Some had failed repeatedly. But there was something in their eyes, a recognition, a relationship, a knowing that the others lacked. They know my voice, Jesus said, not because they studied it, because they spent time with me. They talked to me. They listened to me. They let me into their real lives, not just their religious performances. I watched as a woman approached the gates. She looked uncertain, almost afraid. She hadn't done anything impressive that I could see, but when she reached the threshold, her face just transformed. Jesus, she whispered, and he was there, embracing her, welcoming her home. I know you, he said, and she wept with joy. The contrast was devastating. Same gates, same Jesus, but completely different outcomes based on one thing: relationship. Lord, I said, how many people think they're going to walk through those gates but won't? His face was grave. More than you can imagine. More than I want to imagine. But they're sincere, I protested. They really believe they know you. Sincerity isn't enough, he said. You can be sincerely wrong. You can sincerely believe something that isn't true. You can sincerely practice a religion without ever entering a relationship. He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes made me want to look away. But I couldn't. This is why I brought you here, he said. This is what I need you to understand. There are millions of people, good people, religious people, sincere people who are going to stand at these gates and hear the words, I never knew you, and they're going to be shocked, devastated. They're going to protest that they did everything right, but they missed the one thing that mattered. What's the one thing? I asked, though I thought I knew. Me, he said simply. Not religion, not activities, not knowledge about me. Me. actual relationship with me, knowing my voice, walking with me, letting me know them, and choosing to know me. I looked back at the gates, and the stream of people had slowed to a trickle, and then as I watched, something happened that made my heart stop. The gates began to close, not quickly, not violently, but steadily, inexorably, they began to swing shut. And the people who were still outside, the ones who had been turned away, the ones who were still approaching, the ones who were still arguing, their case they began to panic. No, wait, give me another chance. I'll do better. I'll try harder. Please. But the gates kept closing, and the voice that had been pronouncing judgment fell silent. There were no more chances, no more opportunities, no more time. The gates closed with a sound like thunder and finality, and the light that had been streaming through them was cut off. The people outside were left in darkness, and their cries of anguish were the most horrible sounds I've ever heard. I couldn't watch anymore. I turned away, and I was sobbing. Lord, I can't. This is too much, I can't. You have to, he said, and his voice was firm but not unkind. You have to see this. You have to understand what's at stake. Because you have a platform, you have influence, you have people who listen to you, and I need you to tell them. Tell them what? I asked through my tears. Tell them that the gates will close, he said. Tell them that I never knew you as real. Tell them that religion without relationship is worthless. Tell them that they need to examine themselves now, while there's still time, to make sure they actually know me and I know them. But how? I asked. How do they know? How can they be sure? That's what I'm going to show you, he said. That's why this vision isn't over yet. The scene shifted again. The gates were gone. The crowds were gone. It was just Jesus and me, standing in what looked like an ordinary room. My room, I realized. My apartment. This is where it starts, he said. Not in a church. Not in a big spiritual moment. Here, in the ordinary places, in the daily choices, in the small moments that no one else sees. He walked to my kitchen table and sat down. Sit, he said. Saturday. I'm going to show you the difference. He said, between those who will hear, well done, and those who will hear, I never knew you. I'm going to show you the markers, the signs, the evidence of real relationship versus religious performance. And then I'm going to give you a choice. What choice? I asked. Whether you'll tell people what you've seen, he said. Whether you'll risk being misunderstood, criticized, even mocked, to warn people about what's coming. Whether you'll use your platform to point people toward real relationship with me, even if it costs you something. I thought about my career, my reputation, the careful balance I'd tried to maintain between being known for playing Jesus and actually following Jesus, the fear of being too religious, too intense, too much. I'll tell them, I said. I don't know how, but I'll tell them. Good, he said, because what I'm about to show you will crush you. It will break your heart. It will change how you see everything. But it will also equip you to help people avoid the most devastating words they could ever hear. He leaned forward, and his eyes held mine. Are you ready? He asked. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Then let's begin, he said. Let me show you the 7 differences between those who truly know me and those who only think they do. The vision shifted again, and I found myself looking at 7 doors. Each one was labeled, though I couldn't read the labels yet. They stood in a row, and I knew somehow that behind each door was a truth I needed to understand. These 7 doors, Jesus said, represent the 7 areas where the difference between knowing me and knowing about me becomes clear. We're going to walk through each one. And by the time we're done, you'll understand exactly what I'm looking for. What makes someone ready for heaven's gates? What makes the difference between I never knew you and welcome home? He stood and walked to the first door. This first one, he said, is the most important. It's the foundation for everything else. Get this wrong, and nothing else matters. Get this right, and everything else follows. He put his hand on the door handle and looked back at me. Ready? I stood up, my legs shaky, my heart pounding. What's behind the door? The truth about what it really means to know me, he said, not what you've been taught, not what you've assumed, what it actually means. He opened the door, and what I saw on the other side changed everything I thought I knew about salvation, about relationship with Jesus, about what it means to be a Christian. because I realized, with a horror that made me physically sick, that I had been doing many of the same things as the people who were turned away from the gates. I had been religious, but had I been relational? I had known about Jesus, but did I actually know him? I had called him Lord, but had he ever really been my Lord? The questions hit me like physical blows, and I realized that this vision wasn't just for other people, it was for me too. Lord, I whispered, am I one of them? Am I one of the people who thinks they know you but doesn't? He looked at me with such compassion that I almost couldn't bear it. That's the question everyone needs to ask, he said, and the fact that you're asking it is a good sign, because the people who are truly lost are the ones who never question whether they're found. But how do I know? I asked desperately. How can I be sure? That's what the 7 doors will show you, he said. By the time we walk through all of them, you'll know. Not with perfect certainty, faith always involves trust, but with enough clarity to move forward with confidence. He gestured to the open door. Come on, let's start with the first difference, the one that changes everything. I stepped through the door, and the vision continued. Behind the first door was a scene I recognized immediately, a church service. But I was seeing it differently now, like I had X-ray vision that could see past the external actions into people's hearts. I saw a man in the 3rd row, singing worship songs with his hands raised. But I could see his thoughts, and they were on his business deal, his golf game, his weekend, plans. He was going through the motions, but his heart was somewhere else entirely. I saw a woman taking notes during the sermon, but I could see that she was collecting information, not encountering a person. She was learning about Jesus the way you'd learn about a historical figure, with intellectual interest but no personal investment. I saw a teenager in the youth group, saying all the right things, giving all the right answers, but I could see that it was performance, learned behavior, what was expected. There was no real relationship underneath the religious vocabulary. This is the first difference, Jesus said. Those who truly know me have moved from information to intimacy, from learning about me to actually being with me, from religious activity to relational reality. But they're in church, I protested. They're doing the right things. Are they? He asked. Or are they doing religious things without ever engaging their hearts? You can attend church every week and never meet me. You can sing worship songs and never worship. You can take notes on sermons and never let my word transform you. He showed me another scene. A man sitting in his car before work, talking to Jesus like he was actually there. Not formal prayer, just conversation. Honest, real, unfiltered. I'm nervous about this presentation. I don't feel ready. Help me. Be with me. That's relationship, Jesus said. Not impressive, not religious, just real. He showed me a woman doing dishes, tears streaming down her face, whispering, I don't know how to forgive her. I want to, but I can't. Change my heart. Please. That's intimacy, he said, bringing me into the real moments, the hard moments, the moments when you don't have it all together. He showed me a young man lying in bed, unable to sleep, finally saying out loud, I'm scared. I'm so scared. And I don't know what to do. But I trust you. Even though I'm scared, I trust you. That's knowing me, he said. Not having all the answers. Not feeling spiritual. Just being honest and choosing trust anyway. The contrast was stark. The people in the church looked more religious, but the people in the ordinary moments were more relational. The people who will hear I never knew you, Jesus said, are often the most religious people. They know the Bible. They attend church. They serve in ministries. They give money. They do all the external things, but they never let me into their real lives. They never have actual conversations with me. They never bring me their real struggles, their real doubts, their real selves. They keep me at arm's length, he continued, while maintaining the appearance of closeness. They talk about me, but not to me. They study me, but don't spend time with me. They know facts about me, but don't know my heart. And when they stand at the gates, he said, his voice heavy with sorrow, they'll be shocked to hear I never knew you, because they'll think their religious activity was relationship. But it wasn't. It was just performance. I thought about my own life. How much of my relationship with Jesus was actually just religious activity? How often did I really talk to him versus talk about him? How much time did I spend in actual conversation versus religious obligation? The answer made me uncomfortable. This is the first test, Jesus said. The first way to know if you truly know me or just know about me. Ask yourself, do I talk to Jesus like he's actually here? Do I bring him into my real life or just my religious life? Do I have conversations with him or just recite prayers at him? If your relationship with me is primarily about religious activities, he said, then you don't really know me. You know a religious system, you know a set of practices, but you don't know me. How do I change that? I asked. Start talking to me, he said simply. Right now, in this moment, not in some formal religious way. Just talk to me like I'm here, because I am. I felt awkward, but I tried. Jesus, I'm scared. I'm scared that I've been doing religion instead of relationship. I'm scared that I'm one of the people who will be turned away. Good, he said. That's honest. That's real. That's the beginning of actual relationship. Keep going. I don't know how to do this, I continued. I don't know how to have a real relationship with you. I've been playing you on TV, but I don't know if I actually know you. And that terrifies me. That's intimacy, he said gently. That's what I'm looking for. Not perfect prayers, not impressive spirituality, just honesty, just you, bringing me your real self. He put his hand on my shoulder. The first difference between those who know me and those who don't is simple. Those who know me talk to me, really talk to me. They include me in their actual lives, not just their religious moments. They're honest with me. They bring me their real struggles, their real doubts, their real selves. And those who don't know me, he continued, keep me in the religious compartment. They pray at me but don't talk to me. They perform for me but don't open up to me. They maintain the appearance of relationship while keeping me at a safe distance. He walked toward the second door. Ready for the next difference? I wasn't sure I was. The first one had already shaken me, but I nodded. The second difference, he said, is about obedience, and it's going to challenge everything you think you know about what it means to follow me. He opened the second door, and I stepped through, my heart pounding, wondering what devastating truth I was about to discover next. Because if the first difference had shown me that I might not know Jesus as well as I thought I did, what would the other six reveal? And more importantly, was there still time to change? Was there still time to move from religion to relationship, from knowing about him to actually knowing him? I was about to find out. So the second door opened, and, okay, this is where it got really uncomfortable for me. Because what I saw behind that door was basically a mirror, but not like a regular mirror that shows your physical appearance. This was showing something deeper, my choices, my patterns, my daily decisions, and what I saw made me want to look away. This is the second difference, Jesus said, and his voice was quiet but firm. Between those who truly know me and those who only think they do, it's about obedience. But not the kind of obedience you've been taught. I watched the mirror vision shift and change, showing me scenes from my own life. Moments when I'd heard his voice, that gentle nudge, that clear conviction, and I'd hesitated, rationalized, delayed, ignored. Lord, I said, feeling defensive, I do obey you. I follow your commands. I try to live right. Do you? He asked, and there was no accusation in his voice, just a question that demanded honesty. The mirror showed me a moment from 3 weeks ago. I'd felt a clear prompting to reach out to a friend who was struggling. I'd even picked up my phone. But then I'd thought about how awkward it might be, how I didn't know what to say, how maybe I was just imagining the prompting. So I'd put the phone down and told myself I'd do it later. I never did. That was me, Jesus said simply. That was my voice. You recognized it. You knew it was me. But you chose not to obey. I was going to. I started. Delayed obedience is disobedience, he said, not harshly, but with a clarity that cut through my excuses. And this is where so many people who think they know me actually reveal that they don't. He gestured to the mirror, and the scene changed. I saw the people from the gates again, the ones who had been turned away. But now I could see their lives, their patterns, their responses to his voice. A man who had felt convicted about his anger toward his wife. He'd heard Jesus clearly. Apologize. Make it right. Change your heart. But he'd rationalized it. She'd been wrong too. He'd apologize when she did. It wasn't that big a deal. The conviction faded, and he never obeyed. A woman who had felt prompted to give generously to someone in need. The amount was specific, uncomfortable, more than she wanted to give. She'd heard Jesus clearly, "Trust me, give it," but she'd reasoned it away. That was too much. She had bills. She'd give something smaller. The prompting faded, and she never obeyed. A young man who had felt convicted about his entertainment choices. He'd heard Jesus clearly, "This is damaging you, turn it off. Walk away." But he'd negotiated. Just this one show. Just this one game. Just this one more time. The conviction faded, and he never obeyed. "Do you see the pattern?" Jesus asked. I did. And it terrified me because I saw myself in every single one of them. They heard my voice, he said. They recognized it. They knew it was me. But they didn't obey. And over time, they trained themselves to ignore me. They got so good at rationalizing, at negotiating, at delaying, that they stopped hearing me clearly at all. And when they stood at the gates, he continued, they genuinely believed they knew me, because they'd heard my voice, they'd felt my conviction, they'd experienced my presence, but they'd never actually obeyed me. They'd never actually let me be Lord. The weight of this truth was crushing. "So, knowing you means obeying you." "Not perfectly," he said quickly. "I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for direction. Are you moving toward obedience or away from it? When you hear my voice, do you eventually obey, even if it's messy and imperfect? Or do you consistently rationalize it away?" He walked closer to the mirror, and it shifted again, showing 3 different scenes side by side. "There are 3 types of obedience," he said, "and only one of them reveals that you truly know me." The first scene showed a woman who obeyed Jesus in the areas that were comfortable for her. She was generous with her money that came naturally to her. She served at church, she enjoyed it. She was kind to people, it fit her personality. But when Jesus asked her to forgive someone who had deeply hurt her, she refused. When he prompted her to have a difficult conversation with her adult child, she avoided it. When he convicted her about gossip, she justified it as just being honest. "This is selective obedience," Jesus said. "Obeying me when it's convenient, when it aligns with your preferences, when it doesn't cost you too much, but refusing to obey when it's uncomfortable." "Many people practice selective obedience," he continued, "and they think they're following me because they're obeying in some areas. But they're actually just following themselves. They've created a version of me that only asks them to do what they already want to do." I felt the sting of recognition. How many times had I obeyed Jesus in the easy areas while ignoring him in the hard ones? The second scene showed a man who heard Jesus clearly but always delayed. He'd obey, eventually. He'd get around to it. He'd do it when the timing was better, when he felt more ready, when circumstances were more favorable. "I'll apologize to him. Next week, I'll start being more generous. After I get that raise, I'll deal with that sin pattern, once things calm down." But next week never came. The raise didn't change his heart. Things never calmed down. And the pattern of delay became a pattern of disobedience. "This is delayed obedience," Jesus said, "and it's still disobedience. Because when I ask you to do something, the timing matters, the opportunity matters, the moment matters." He showed me the friend I'd been prompted to call 3 weeks ago. "He needed to hear from you that day," Jesus said quietly. "He was in a dark place. Your call would have been a lifeline, but you delayed, and the moment passed." The guilt hit me like a wave. Is he okay? "He's alive," Jesus said, "but he's more isolated now, more convinced that no one cares. You weren't his only hope. I had others reach out, but you missed your moment, and that matters." The third scene showed a young woman who heard Jesus and obeyed. Not perfectly, not without fear or doubt, but she obeyed. She felt prompted to text a friend, "I'm praying for you today." It felt small, maybe even silly, but she did it immediately. And her friend, who had been contemplating suicide that morning, received it as a sign that someone cared. She felt convicted about a relationship that was pulling her away from Jesus. It was going to be painful to end it, but she obeyed. And 6 months later, she met someone who actually pointed her toward Jesus instead of away from him. She felt prompted to give a specific amount to a missionary. It was more than she was comfortable with, but she obeyed. And that exact amount covered an emergency medical expense the missionary was facing. This is immediate obedience, Jesus said. Not perfect obedience, she still struggles, still fails, still has to repent. But when she hears my voice, she obeys. Quickly, even when it's uncomfortable, even when she doesn't understand why. And that, he said, turning to face me, is the mark of someone who truly knows me. Not someone who never struggles, but someone who, when they hear my voice, chooses to obey rather than rationalize. He gave me a test, a way to know if I was practicing real obedience or just selective, delayed obedience. The mirror shifted again, and I saw a list of questions forming. When was the last time you obeyed me in something that cost you something? I had to think about that. Really think. When was the last time I'd obeyed Jesus in a way that was genuinely uncomfortable, that required real sacrifice, that went against my natural preferences? I couldn't remember. If you can't remember, Jesus said, gently, it's probably because you're only obeying me in areas that don't cost you anything, and that's not really obedience. That's just doing what you already wanted to do and calling it obedience. When was the last time you obeyed me immediately, without negotiating or rationalizing? Again, I struggled to answer. Most of my obedience involved a lengthy internal debate where I tried to talk myself into or out of what I knew Jesus was asking. Immediate obedience, he said, doesn't mean you don't have questions or doubts. It means you don't let those questions and doubts become excuses for disobedience. You obey first and trust that I'll work out the details. Is there something I've been asking you to do that you've been avoiding? This one hit like a punch to the gut. Because yes, there was. There was a relationship I needed to repair, a conversation I needed to have, a pattern I needed to break, a commitment I needed to make. And I'd been avoiding all of it, telling myself I'd deal with it later, when I was ready, when the timing was better. That's the thing about delayed obedience, Jesus said. You always think you'll do it later, but later never comes. And eventually, you stop hearing my voice clearly because you've trained yourself to ignore it. The mirror shifted back to the scene at Heaven's Gates. I saw a man approaching. He'd been a faithful church attender. He'd known the Bible well. He'd even taught Sunday school. But when he reached the gates, Jesus said, I never knew you. But Lord, the man protested, I knew you. I studied your word. I taught others about you. Did you obey me? Jesus asked. The man hesitated. I tried. I did my best. Did you obey me? Jesus asked again, and the man's face fell, because he knew the answer. He'd heard Jesus' voice countless times, promptings to forgive, convictions about pride, nudges to be generous, calls to difficult conversations, and he'd rationalized every single one away. He'd known about Jesus, he'd studied Jesus, he'd taught about Jesus, but he'd never actually obeyed Jesus. He'd never actually let Jesus be Lord. This is why obedience matters, Jesus said to me, not because I'm a tyrant who demands compliance, but because obedience is the evidence of relationship. It's how you demonstrate that you actually know me and trust me. He quoted his own words, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? If you love me, you will obey my commands. Whoever has my commands and keeps them is the one who loves me. Obedience, he said, is not about earning salvation. You can't earn it. It's a gift. But obedience is the evidence that you've actually received the gift, that you've actually entered into relationship with me, that you actually know me. People who truly know me, he continued, obey me, not perfectly, but consistently, not because they have to, but because they want to, because they trust me, because they love me. And people who don't know me, he said, might know a lot about me. They might do religious things. They might call me Lord, but they don't actually obey me. They follow their own version of me, a version that only asks them to do what they already want to do. Lord, I said, my voice shaking, how do I know if I'm really obeying you? How do I know if I'm one of the people who truly knows you or one of the people who just thinks they do? He looked at me with such compassion. Ask yourself these 3 questions and answer them honestly. 1. When I hear your voice, do I obey more often than I rationalize? I thought about it, honestly, and I realized that I rationalized more than I obeyed. I heard his voice regularly, but I obeyed it, occasionally, when it was convenient, when it didn't cost too much. 2. Am I obeying you in the hard areas or just the easy ones? Again, the honest answer was uncomfortable. I obeyed Jesus in areas that came naturally to me, but in the areas that required real sacrifice, real change, real discomfort, I avoided those. 3. Is there something you've been asking me to do that I've been putting off? Yes, multiple things, and I'd been putting them off for months, years in some cases. Then you have your answer, Jesus said gently. You're not fully obeying me, which means you don't fully know me yet. But the good news is, you can change that, starting right now. How? I asked desperately. How do I move from selective, delayed obedience to real obedience? 3 steps, he said. Simple but not easy. Step 1, identify the one thing I've been asking you to do that you've been avoiding. Don't try to fix everything at once, he said. Just identify the one thing. The thing you know I've been asking you to do. The thing you've been rationalizing or delaying. For me, it was clear. There was a relationship I needed to repair, someone I'd hurt, someone I needed to apologize to. I'd been putting it off for 2 years. Step 2, obey immediately. Today. No more delays. Not tomorrow, Jesus said. Not when you feel ready. Not when the timing is better. Today. Right now. As soon as this vision ends. But what if? I started. No what ifs, he interrupted firmly. That's rationalization. That's negotiation. That's the pattern you need to break. Just obey. Trust me with the outcome. Step 3. Practice immediate obedience in small things. Start paying attention to my voice throughout your day, he said. The small promptings, the gentle nudges, the quiet convictions, and when you hear them, obey immediately. Don't debate, don't delay. Just obey. Text that person. Apologize for that comment. Turn off that show. Give that money. Have that conversation. The more you practice immediate obedience in small things, he said, the more natural it becomes, and the more clearly you'll hear my voice, because I speak more clearly to people who actually listen. If you do this, Jesus said, if you commit to real obedience, not perfect obedience, but honest, immediate obedience, I promise you 3 things. 1. You'll hear my voice more clearly. Right now, my voice is muffled by all your rationalizations and delays, he said. But when you start obeying immediately, you'll be amazed at how much more clearly you hear me, because I speak more to people who actually listen. 2. You'll experience more peace. Disobedience creates internal conflict, he said. You know what I'm asking, but you're not doing it, and that creates anxiety and guilt. But obedience brings peace, even when it's difficult, even when it costs you something. 3. You'll know me more deeply. This is the most important one, he said. Obedience deepens relationship. Every time you obey me, especially in difficult things, you learn to trust me more. You experience my faithfulness. You discover that my ways really are better than yours. And when you stand at heaven's gates, he said, you won't be shocked to hear, well done. You'll recognize me, because you've been obeying me. You've been walking with me. You've been letting me be Lord. The mirror faded, and we were back in my apartment. Jesus stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. Jonathan, he said, you have a choice to make. Right now. Not later. Now. What choice? I asked, though I knew. Will you obey me, he said, in the thing I've been asking you to do, the relationship you need to repair? Will you do it today, or will you delay again? I felt every excuse rising up. It's been 2 years, it's going to be awkward. What if they don't forgive me? What if it makes things worse? Maybe I should wait until... Those are rationalizations, Jesus said, reading my thoughts. That's the pattern you need to break. I'm asking you to obey. Today? Will you? I thought about the gates, about the people who had been turned away, about the words, I never knew you, about the difference between knowing about Jesus and actually knowing him. And I realized that this was the moment. This was where theory became practice, where knowledge became obedience, where religion became relationship. Yes, I said, I'll do it today. Good, he said, because that's the second difference between those who know me and those who don't. Those who know me obey me, not perfectly, but consistently, not because they have to, but because they want to. He walked toward the third door, ready for the next difference. I wasn't sure I could handle more. The first two had already shaken me to my core. But I nodded. The third difference, he said, is about love, and it's going to show you whether your faith is real or just theoretical. He opened the third door, and I stepped through, wondering what devastating truth I was about to discover next. Because if the first difference had shown me that I needed real conversation with Jesus, and the second had shown me that I needed real obedience to Jesus, what would the third reveal? And more importantly, would I have the courage to change? Would I actually obey what he was showing me? Or would I be like the people at the gates, knowing the truth but never actually living it? I was about to find out. So the third door opened into a room I didn't expect. It wasn't grand or mystical or anything like that. It was just ordinary. A living room, a kitchen, a workplace, a street corner. Just everyday places where everyday people lived their everyday lives. But I could see something others couldn't. I could see hearts. Not the physical organ, but like the spiritual reality underneath every action, every word, every interaction. And what I saw made me sick. This is the third difference, Jesus said, his voice heavy with something I couldn't quite name. Disappointment, grief, between those who truly know me and those who only think they do. It's about love, but not the kind of love people talk about. The kind of love people actually live. The scene before me shifted, and I saw a man leaving church. He'd just sung worship songs with his hands raised. He'd just heard a sermon about loving your neighbor. He'd just prayed for God to use him, and then he got in his car. A homeless man approached him in the parking lot. "Sir, I'm hungry. Could you spare?" The man didn't even let him finish. "Get a job," he muttered, rolling up his window and driving away. I could see into his heart. There was no compassion, no concern, just annoyance that his Sunday routine had been interrupted, just disgust at the man's appearance, just a hardness that looked nothing like Jesus. "But Lord," I protested, "maybe he's been scammed before. Maybe he's just being wise about—" "Look at his heart," Jesus interrupted. "I'm not showing you his actions. I'm showing you his heart, and his heart has no love for that man. No compassion, no concern, just contempt." The scene shifted to a woman in a Bible study. She was sharing a prayer request about a coworker who was difficult to work with. But I could see her heart. She wasn't asking for prayer because she loved her coworker and wanted God to help the relationship. She was asking for prayer because she wanted God to change her coworker or remove her from the situation. There was no love there, just frustration, just a desire for her own comfort. The scene shifted again. A man posting on social media about a political issue. He was quoting scripture. He was claiming to speak truth. But I could see his heart. There was no love for the people he was arguing with. Just self-righteousness. Just a desire to be right, to win, to make others look foolish. "This is what I see," Jesus said quietly. "Every day. People who claim to love me, who sing songs about loving me, who pray prayers about loving me, but they don't love the people I love. They don't love the people I died for. They don't love the people I'm asking them to love. And when they stand at heaven's gates," he continued, "they'll be shocked to hear I never knew you. Because they'll think their love for me was enough, but it wasn't. Because you can't actually love me while hating the people I love." He showed me what he called the love test. The room transformed into something like a courtroom, but not threatening. More like a place where truth was simply revealed. And I saw a man standing there, the same man who had dismissed the homeless person in the parking lot. "Do you love me?" Jesus asked him. "Of course, Lord," the man said. "I go to church every week. I tithe. I serve in ministry. I read my Bible. I pray. Of course I love you." "Do you love the homeless man you drove past?" Jesus asked. The man hesitated. That's different. He was probably just going to use the money for drugs. I was being wise. "I didn't ask if you gave him money," Jesus said. "I asked if you loved him. Did you see him as someone I died for? Did you feel compassion for him? Did you see him as your brother? Or did you see him as an inconvenience?" The man's face fell, because he knew the answer, and so did I. This is the test. Jesus said, turning to me. Not whether you say you love me, not whether you do religious things, but whether you actually love the people I love, especially the ones who are hard to love, especially the ones who inconvenience you, especially the ones who are different from you. He quoted his own words, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments." And what is my commandment? That you love one another as I have loved you. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Love for me, he said, is proven by love for others. You can't separate the two. If you claim to love me, but you don't love people, you're lying, either to me or to yourself, probably both. The scene shifted again, and I saw 3 different groups of people. All of them claimed to love Jesus. All of them were sincere in their belief, but none of them actually loved the way Jesus loved. The first group loved people who were like them, who agreed with them, who made them feel comfortable, who fit into their social circle. I saw a church small group. They loved each other. They prayed for each other. They supported each other. But when someone new tried to join someone who dressed differently, who had a different background, who didn't quite fit their culture, they were politely excluded. "We just don't think you'd be a good fit for our group." I could see their hearts. They weren't being intentionally cruel. They just loved their comfort more than they loved the outsider. They loved their homogeneous group more than they loved the person who was different. This is selective love, Jesus said, loving people who are easy to love, who are like you, who don't challenge you. But that's not my kind of love. I love the people who are nothing like me, the sinners, the outcasts, the ones the religious people rejected. If you only love people who are like you, he continued, you don't actually love. You just love yourself reflected in others. The second group loved people as long as those people met certain conditions, as long as they behaved correctly, as long as they believed the right things, as long as they didn't disappoint them. I saw a father and his adult son. The son had left the faith. He was living a lifestyle his father disapproved of, and the father had cut him off. "I can't support your choices. When you come back to God, we can have a relationship again." I could see the father's heart. He thought he was taking a righteous stand. He thought he was being faithful to God, but there was no love there, just judgment, just conditions, just a withholding of relationship until his son met his standards. This is conditional love, Jesus said, and it's not love at all. It's manipulation. It's control. It's using relationship as a weapon to force people to behave the way you want them to. I never loved people conditionally, he said. I loved them while they were still sinners. I loved them before they changed. I loved them even when they rejected me. That's what real love looks like. The third group loved people in theory, but not in practice. They talked about loving everyone. They believed in loving everyone, but they never actually did anything that demonstrated love. I saw a woman who posted constantly on social media about loving refugees, about caring for the poor, about justice and compassion, but she never actually interacted with a refugee, never actually served at a homeless shelter, never actually gave sacrificially to help anyone. Her love was all theoretical, all talk, all performance for her online audience. But there was no actual love in her heart, no actual sacrifice, no actual relationship with the people she claimed to love. This is theoretical love, Jesus said, and it's worthless. Love isn't a feeling you have or a belief you hold. Love is something you do. It's action. It's sacrifice. It's actually caring for actual people in actual ways. "Faith without works is dead," he quoted, and love without action is just sentimentality. It's not real. So, what does real love look like, I asked. The kind of love that proves I actually know you? The scene shifted again, and I saw different people. People who truly loved the way Jesus loved. I saw a man who stopped to help the homeless person in the parking lot, not because he felt like it, not because it was convenient, but because he saw that person as someone Jesus loved, someone Jesus died for, someone who mattered. He didn't just give money. He sat down. He asked the man's name. He listened to his story. He prayed with him. He gave him his phone number and told him to call if he needed anything. I could see his heart. There was genuine compassion there, genuine concern, genuine love. Not perfect love. He was still uncomfortable, still uncertain about what to do, but real love, the kind that costs something, That's real love, Jesus said, not perfect, but real. He saw that man the way I see him, as someone precious, someone worth his time, someone worth his discomfort. I saw a woman whose adult daughter had come out as gay. The woman didn't agree with her daughter's choices. She believed what the Bible said about sexuality, but she didn't cut her daughter off. She didn't make her relationship conditional on her daughter changing. She loved her. She spent time with her. She listened to her. She prayed for her. She made it clear that nothing could separate her from her love, and she trusted God with the outcome. I could see her heart. There was real love there. Not approval of everything, not agreement with every choice, but genuine, unconditional love, the kind that doesn't require someone to change before you'll love them. That's real love, Jesus said. Loving people even when you disagree with them, even when they disappoint you, even when they make choices you wouldn't make. That's how I love, and that's how I'm asking you to love. I saw a man who had been deeply hurt by someone in his church. The person had betrayed him, lied about him, damaged his reputation, and he had every right to be angry, to cut that person off, to demand justice. But he chose to forgive, not because he felt like it, not because the person deserved it, but because Jesus had forgiven him, and he chose to love the way Jesus loved. I could see his heart. The hurt was still there, the betrayal still stung, but there was also love, genuine love, the kind that chooses to forgive even when it costs everything. That's real love, Jesus said. Forgiving people who hurt you, loving people who don't deserve it, choosing compassion over revenge. That's the love that proves you know me. But Lord, I said, what about the people who are really hard to love? The people who are cruel or hateful or dangerous? Are we supposed to love them too? Yes, he said simply. The scene shifted, and I saw a woman whose husband had abused her. He'd been arrested, and she'd divorced him. She had every right to hate him, every right to want nothing to do with him. But she prayed for him, she forgave him, she hoped for his redemption. Not because she wanted to be back in relationship with him, she had healthy boundaries and knew she couldn't be, but because she genuinely wanted him to find healing and freedom. I could see her heart. The trauma was still there, the pain was still real, but there was also love. Not romantic love, not even friendship, but genuine concern for his soul, genuine hope for his redemption. That's the hardest kind of love, Jesus said, loving your enemies, praying for those who persecute you, hoping for the redemption of people who hurt you. But that's what I did. I prayed for the people who crucified me, and I'm asking you to do the same. But that doesn't mean staying in abusive relationships, he clarified quickly. Love doesn't mean letting people hurt you. You can love someone from a distance. You can love someone while maintaining healthy boundaries. You can love someone while protecting yourself and others from their harmful behavior. Love isn't stupid, he said. Love is wise, but it's also generous. It hopes for redemption even for the worst people, because I died for the worst people, and I'm asking you to love them the way I love them. He gave me what he called a love diagnostic. The room transformed into a mirror again, but this time it was showing me my own heart, my own patterns, my own relationships. Question 1. Who are the people you find hardest to love? I saw faces in the mirror, people who annoyed me, people who disagreed with me politically, people who had hurt me, people who were different from me, people who made me uncomfortable. Those people, Jesus said, are your test. Anyone can love people who are easy to love, but can you love the people who are hard to love? Can you see them the way I see them? Can you have compassion for them even when they don't deserve it? Question 2. When was the last time your love for someone cost you something? I had to think about that. Really think. When was the last time I'd loved someone in a way that was genuinely sacrificial, that required me to give up something I wanted, that was inconvenient or uncomfortable? I couldn't remember. If your love never costs you anything, Jesus said, it's not real love. Real love is sacrificial. It gives, it serves, it puts others first. If you're only loving people in ways that are convenient for you, you're not actually loving them. Question 3. Do you love people differently based on their race, class, politics, or lifestyle? The mirror showed me the truth. I did. I was more patient with people who were like me, more generous with people who agreed with me, more compassionate toward people who fit my cultural expectations, and I was less patient, less generous, less compassionate toward people who were different, people who challenged me, people who made me uncomfortable. That's not my kind of love, Jesus said. I loved everyone equally, the rich and the poor, the religious and the sinful, the Jew and the Gentile, the powerful and the powerless. I didn't love people based on their demographics. I loved them because they were human, because they were made in my Father's image, because I died for them. If you love people differently based on these things, he continued, you don't actually love. You just love people who are like you. And that's not love, that's tribalism. The mirror faded and we were back at the gates. I saw another person approaching a woman who had been a worship leader, a Bible study teacher, someone who had spent her whole life in church. But when she reached the gates, Jesus said, I never knew you. But Lord, she protested, I loved you, I worshipped you, I served you. Did you love my people? Jesus asked. She hesitated. I loved the people in my church. I loved my friends. I loved my family. Did you love the people who were different from you? Jesus asked. The people who made you uncomfortable? The people who disagreed with you? The people who were hard to love? Her face fell, because she knew the answer. She'd loved people who were like her, people who fit into her world. But she'd had no love for the outsider, the different, the difficult. You can't love me while hating my people, Jesus said. You can't claim to know me while refusing to love the people I died for. Love for me is proven by love for others. And you had no love. The woman was pulled away from the gates and I felt tears streaming down my face. This is why love matters, Jesus said to me. Not because I'm keeping score, not because I'm demanding perfection, but because love is the evidence of transformation. If you truly know me, if you've truly been changed by my love, you will love others, not perfectly, but genuinely. People who truly know me, he continued, love the way I love. They see people the way I see them. They have compassion for the broken, the lost, the difficult, the different. They love sacrificially. They love unconditionally. They love even when it costs them something. And people who don't know me, he said, might talk about love. They might sing about love. They might believe in love theoretically. But they don't actually love. They love selectively, conditionally, theoretically, and that's not love at all. Jesus turned to face me fully. Jonathan, I'm going to give you a challenge, a way to test whether you truly love or just think you do. What is it? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. I want you to identify the 3 people you find hardest to love, he said. The 3 people who annoy you, who frustrate you, who make you uncomfortable, who you'd rather avoid. I knew immediately who they were. A family member who had hurt me, a coworker who drove me crazy, a public figure whose views I found repulsive. Now, Jesus said, I want you to pray for them, every day for the next 30 days. Not prayers that they'll change, not prayers that they'll see things your way, prayers that I'll bless them, that I'll work in their lives, that I'll give them what they need. And I want you to look for one way to show love to each of them, he continued. Not big, dramatic gestures, just small acts of kindness. A text, a card, a word of encouragement, something that demonstrates that you see them as people I love. But I don't feel love for them, I protested. I know, he said. That's why this is a challenge. Love isn't a feeling you wait for, it's a choice you make. You choose to love, and the feelings follow. You act in love, and your heart changes. If you do this, he said, if you commit to praying for these people and showing them love even when you don't feel it, I promise you 2 things. 1, your heart will change. You can't consistently pray for someone and show them kindness without your heart softening toward them, he said. It's impossible. Love is a practice, not just a feeling. And when you practice love, your heart follows. 2, you'll understand my heart better. When you love people who are hard to love, he said, you'll understand how I feel about you. Because you're hard to love too. You're broken, flawed, difficult. But I love you anyway. And when you love others the way I love you, you'll understand my heart in a way you never have before. We were back in my apartment. Jesus walked to the window and looked out at the city, millions of people, each one someone he loved. someone he died for. Jonathan, he said, you have another choice to make. Will you love the way I love, or will you keep loving selectively, conditionally, theoretically? I thought about the 3 people he'd asked me to pray for. I didn't want to. I didn't feel like it. Every part of me wanted to make excuses, to rationalize why this was too hard, why they didn't deserve it. But I thought about the Gates, about the woman who had been turned away because she'd never learned to love, about the words, I never knew you. And I realized that this was another test, another moment where theory had to become practice, where knowledge had to become action. I'll do it, I said. I'll pray for them. I'll look for ways to show them love, even though I don't feel it, even though it's hard. Good, Jesus said, because that's the third difference between those who know me and those who don't. Those who know me love the way I love, not perfectly, but genuinely, not just the people who are easy to love, but the people who are hard to love. He walked toward the 4th door. Ready for the next difference? I felt exhausted. The first 3 had already challenged everything I thought I knew about faith, about relationship with Jesus, about what it means to be a Christian. But I nodded. The 4th difference, he said, is about surrender, and it's going to show you whether you've truly made me Lord or whether you're still trying to be your own Lord. He opened the 4th door, and I stepped through, wondering what devastating truth I was about to discover next. Because if the first difference had shown me I needed real conversation with Jesus, the second had shown me I needed real obedience, and the third had shown me I needed real love, what would the 4th reveal? And more importantly, would I have the courage to actually change? Would I actually do what he was asking? Or would I be like the people at the gates knowing the truth but never actually living it? I was about to find out. Okay, so the 4th door opened into a throne room. But it wasn't what I expected. There were 2 thrones, not one, and they were positioned in a way that made it clear only one could be occupied at a time. This is the 4th difference, Jesus said, his voice carrying a weight that made the air feel heavy. Between those who truly know me and those who only think they do, it's about surrender, about lordship, about who actually sits on the throne of your life. I looked at the 2 thrones. One was ornate, beautiful, positioned in the center of the room with light streaming down on it. The other was simpler, positioned slightly to the side, but somehow more solid, more real. Most people, Jesus said, think they've made me Lord because they call me Lord, because they pray to me, because they go to church. But calling me Lord and actually making me Lord are 2 completely different things. The scene shifted, and I saw a man kneeling in prayer. Lord Jesus, he was saying, I surrender my life to you. I make you Lord of everything. Use me however you want. It sounded sincere. It looked sincere. But then I saw what happened next. The man stood up from prayer and immediately started making plans for his life, his career, his relationships, his finances, his future. And in every decision, he consulted his own desires, his own wisdom, his own preferences. He never once asked Jesus what he wanted. He called me Lord, Jesus said quietly, but he never actually gave me control. He made all his own decisions. He followed his own plans. He lived his own life. And he called it surrendered because he prayed about it afterward. But that's not surrender, he continued. That's just asking me to bless what you've already decided to do. That's not making me Lord. That's making me your consultant. The throne room transformed, and I saw 3 different people. All of them believed they had surrendered to Jesus. All of them called him Lord, but none of them had actually given him control. The first person I saw was a woman who surrendered to Jesus in areas that didn't cost her much, but negotiated in areas that did. She surrendered her Sunday mornings, she went to church faithfully. She surrendered her money, she tithed regularly. She surrendered her time, she volunteered in ministry. But when Jesus asked her to surrender her relationship with a man who was pulling her away from him, she negotiated. But Lord, I'm not getting any younger. What if he's my last chance? Can't you just change him? Can't we make this work? When Jesus asked her to surrender her career ambitions that were consuming her life and destroying her health, she negotiated. But Lord, I've worked so hard for this. I'm so close. Just let me reach this goal, and then I'll slow down. When Jesus asked her to surrender her need for control in her adult children's lives, she negotiated. But Lord, they're making bad choices. Someone has to guide them. I'm just being a good mother. This is the illusion of surrender, Jesus said. Surrendering in areas that don't threaten your comfort while negotiating in areas that do. It's not real surrender. It's selective obedience dressed up as surrender. The second person I saw was a man who surrendered to Jesus with conditions attached. I'll follow you, Lord, as long as you bless my business. I'll serve you, Lord, as long as my family stays healthy. I'll trust you, Lord, as long as things work out the way I want them to. He thought he had surrendered, but his surrender had an escape clause. It was conditional. It was based on Jesus's meeting his expectations, fulfilling his desires, giving him what he wanted. And when things didn't go the way he expected, when his business struggled, when his child got sick, when his prayers weren't answered the way he wanted, he withdrew his surrender. I thought you were supposed to take care of me. I thought following you meant things would work out. I thought surrender meant blessing, not suffering. This is conditional surrender, Jesus said, and it's not surrender at all. It's a transaction. I'll give you control as long as you give me what I want. But real surrender has no conditions. Real surrender trusts me even when things don't make sense. Even when I don't give you what you want. Even when following me costs you everything. The third person I saw was a man who surrendered some areas of his life to Jesus but kept other areas for himself. He surrendered his spiritual life. He prayed, read his Bible, went to church. That was Jesus's territory. But his business life? That was his territory. He made those decisions based on profit, on strategy, on what made sense to him. He didn't ask Jesus about business decisions. That wasn't spiritual. His entertainment choices? His territory. What he watched, what he listened to, what he consumed, that was personal, that was private. That wasn't Jesus's business. His political views? His territory. He'd formed those opinions based on his own reasoning, his own values, his own tribe. He didn't ask Jesus to challenge or shape his political beliefs. This is partial surrender, Jesus said, giving me some areas of your life while keeping others for yourself, creating sacred and secular categories, letting me be Lord of your spiritual life while you remain Lord of everything else. But I don't work that way, he continued. I'm not interested in being Lord of part of your life. I'm either Lord of all, or I'm not Lord at all. You can't compartmentalize me. You can't give me Sundays and keep the rest of the week for yourself. So what does real surrender look like? I asked, feeling increasingly uncomfortable because I recognized myself in all three of these people. The scene shifted, and I saw different people, people who had truly surrendered. And what I saw challenged everything I thought I knew about what surrender meant. I saw a man who had been offered his dream job, everything he'd worked for, everything he'd wanted. But when he prayed about it, he felt Jesus saying, "This isn't for you. I have something different." And he turned it down, not because he understood why, not because he had a better option, but because Jesus said no, and he trusted Jesus more than he trusted his own desires. I could see his heart. There was grief there, disappointment, confusion, but there was also peace, because he'd surrendered his dreams to Jesus, and he trusted that Jesus's plans were better than his own, even when he couldn't see how. That's real surrender, Jesus said, trusting me even when it doesn't make sense, even when it costs you something you really want, even when you don't understand why. I saw a woman who had been praying for years for a husband. She'd done everything right. She'd waited. She'd trusted. She'd believed. But year after year passed, and she remained single. And finally, she surrendered, not with resignation, not with bitterness, but with genuine trust. Lord, if you want me to be single for the rest of my life, I trust you. I surrender my desire for marriage. I surrender my timeline. I surrender my expectations. I choose to trust that you know what's best for me, even if it's not what I want. You could see her heart. The desire was still there. The longing hadn't disappeared, but there was also surrender, real surrender. The kind that says, your will, not mine, even if your will breaks my heart. That's real surrender, Jesus said, giving me your deepest desires, trusting me with your greatest longings, choosing my will even when it means not getting what you want. I saw a man who had built a successful business. He'd worked for decades to build it. It was his legacy, his security, his identity, and Jesus asked him to give it away, not to sell it and retire comfortably, to give it away to someone who needed it more, to trust Jesus for his future without the security he'd spent his life building. And he did it. I could see his heart. There was fear there, uncertainty, questions about how he'd survive, how he'd provide for his family, what his future would look like. But there was also surrender, complete surrender, the kind that says, "You gave it to me, it's yours to take, I trust you." That's real surrender, Jesus said, holding everything with open hands. Being willing to give up anything I ask you to give up, trusting me more than you trust your own security. He gave me what he called a surrender test. The throne room transformed into a mirror again, and I saw my own life reflected back at me. But this time, I could see the areas where I was still sitting on the throne, the areas where I was still in control, the areas where I called Jesus Lord but never actually let him be Lord. Question 1. What are you afraid I might ask you to give up? The mirror showed me the truth. There were things I was afraid of, things I didn't want Jesus to touch, things I hoped he'd never ask me to surrender. My career. What if he asked me to walk away from acting? What if he asked me to give up the platform I'd built, my financial security? What if he asked me to give away more than I was comfortable giving? What if he asked me to trust him without a safety net? My relationships. What if he asked me to end a friendship that was unhealthy? What if he asked me to have a difficult conversation I'd been avoiding? My reputation. What if following him meant being misunderstood, criticized, rejected, those things you're afraid I'll ask for? Jesus said gently, are the things you haven't actually surrendered. They're the areas where you're still on the throne, where you're still in control, where you're still Lord. Question 2. What decisions do you make without asking me? The mirror showed me my patterns. The decisions I made based on my own wisdom, my own desires, my own reasoning, without ever consulting Jesus. Career decisions, financial decisions, relationship decisions, daily choices about how I spent my time, my money, my energy. I prayed about some things, but most of my life, I just lived it, made decisions, followed my own wisdom, and then asked Jesus to bless what I'd already decided. Those decisions you make without asking me, Jesus said, reveal where you're still Lord. Real surrender means consulting me about everything, not just the spiritual decisions, everything. Because if I'm truly Lord, then every area of your life is under my authority. Question 3. What would you refuse to do if I asked you to do it? This question hit hardest, because I realized there were things I would refuse, things that, if Jesus asked me to do them, I would negotiate, rationalize, or simply say no. Move to a different city for ministry? I'd probably resist. Give away a significant portion of my wealth? I'd negotiate. Publicly take a stand that would cost me professionally? I'd hesitate. Forgive someone who deeply hurt me and pursue reconciliation? I'd make excuses. Those things you would refuse, Jesus said, are the boundaries of your surrender. They're the lines you've drawn that say, I'll follow you this far, but no further. But real surrender has no boundaries. Real surrender says, anything you ask, I'll do. Anywhere you send, I'll go. Whatever you require, I'll give. The mirror faded, and we were back at the gates. I saw another person approaching a man who had been a church leader, a respected Christian, someone who had called Jesus Lord his entire life. But when he reached the gates, Jesus said, I never knew you. But Lord, the man protested, I called you Lord, I served you, I led others to you. How can you say you never knew me? Did you ever actually let me be Lord? Jesus asked. The man hesitated. I followed you. I obeyed your commands. I did what you asked. Did you? Jesus asked. Or did you follow your own plans and ask me to bless them? Did you obey when it was convenient and negotiate when it wasn't? Did you surrender some areas while keeping others for yourself? The man's face fell, because he knew the answer. He'd called Jesus Lord for decades, but he'd never actually given Jesus control. He'd made his own decisions, followed his own wisdom, lived his own life, and he'd called it following Jesus because he prayed about it and went to church. You can't call me Lord while refusing to let me be Lord, Jesus said. Lordship isn't a title, It's a reality. Either I'm in control, or you are. Either you've surrendered, or you haven't. There's no middle ground. The man was pulled away from the gates, and I felt physically ill. This is why surrender matters, Jesus said to me. Not because I'm a control freak who demands submission, but because you can't actually know me while refusing to trust me. You can't have a real relationship with me while keeping me at arm's length. You can't experience my best for your life while insisting on your own way. People who truly know me, he continued, have surrendered. Not perfectly, they still struggle, still question, still wrestle, but they've fundamentally shifted from my will to your will. They've moved from the throne. They've given me control. They've made me Lord in reality, not just in word. And people who don't know me, he said, might call me Lord. They might do religious things. They might even do good things, but they've never actually surrendered. They've never actually given me control. They're still on the throne of their own lives, and they've just invited me to be an advisor. Jesus turned to face me fully. Jonathan, I'm going to ask you to do something that will reveal whether you've truly surrendered or whether you're still on the throne. My heart started pounding. What is it? I want you to identify the one thing you're most afraid. I'll ask you to give up, he said. The one area where you're still holding on to control. The one thing you've been hoping I won't touch. I knew immediately what it was. My career, my platform, the work I'd built, the identity I'd created. I was terrified that he'd ask me to walk away from it all. Now, Jesus said, I want you to surrender it. Completely. Tell me, out loud, that it's mine. That I can do whatever I want with it. That if I ask you to walk away tomorrow, you'll do it. Every part of me wanted to negotiate, to add conditions, to say, but Lord, what about? To explain why this was different, why this was important, why I needed to keep this one thing. But I thought about the gates, about the man who had been turned away because he'd never truly surrendered, about the words, I never knew you. And I realized this was the moment. This was where theory became practice, where words became reality, where I either surrendered or admitted I'd been pretending to surrender all along. I took a deep breath. Jesus, I said, my voice shaking, I surrender my career to you, my platform, my work, my identity as an actor. It's all yours. If you want me to walk away tomorrow, I'll walk away. If you want me to continue but in a different way, I'll do that. If you want me to use it for something I never imagined, I'll trust you. I'm not on the throne anymore. You are. It's all yours. The words felt like they cost me everything. Like I was giving up control of the one thing I'd built my life around. Like I was stepping off a cliff without knowing if there was ground beneath me. But I also felt something else. Something I didn't expect. Peace. Not the peace of having everything figured out, not the peace of knowing what would happen next, but the peace of finally, truly, completely surrendering, of getting off the throne, of letting Jesus actually be Lord. Good, Jesus said, and there was such joy in his voice. That's real surrender. Not easy, not comfortable, but real. You just moved from the throne, and now I can actually be Lord of your life, not just in word, but in reality. What happens now? I asked. What does life look like when you're actually Lord? 3 things change, Jesus said, and they'll transform everything. 1, you'll experience freedom you've never known. Right now, you feel like you gave something up, he said, but you'll discover that you actually gained something. Freedom, the freedom of not having to be in control, the freedom of not having to figure everything out, the freedom of trusting me with your future instead of trying to secure it yourself. Surrender feels like loss, he continued, but it's actually gain. Because my yoke is easy and my burden is light, trying to be Lord of your own life is exhausting. Letting me be Lord is rest. 2, you'll hear my voice more clearly. When you're on the throne, he said, you can't hear me clearly because you're too busy making your own plans, following your own wisdom, protecting your own interests. But when you surrender, when you get off the throne, suddenly you can hear me because you're actually listening, because you're actually willing to obey whatever I say. I speak more clearly to people who are actually surrendered, he said, because I know they'll actually do what I ask. There's no point in giving detailed directions to someone who's going to ignore them and do their own thing anyway. 3, you'll experience my best for your life. My plans for you, he said, are better than your plans for yourself. Always. But you can't experience my best while insisting on your own way. You can't receive what I want to give you while your hands are full of what you're trying to get for yourself. Surrender, he said, opens your hands to receive. It positions you to experience things you never could have planned or achieved on your own. It gives me room to work in ways that will blow your mind. But surrender isn't a one-time event, Jesus said. It's a daily practice. Because you'll be tempted every day to climb back on the throne, to take back control, to make your own plans. So let me give you a daily practice, he continued. Something simple that will help you stay surrendered. He gave me a morning prayer. Every morning before you do anything else, pray this. Jesus, I surrender this day to you. My plans, my agenda, my desires, they're all yours. I'm not on the throne today. You are. Show me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. Lead me where you want me to go, and I'll go. Use me however you want to use me. I'm yours. Throughout the day, when you're faced with decisions, big or small, pause and ask, Jesus, what do you want me to do here? Don't just make the decision and ask me to bless it. Actually ask me first. Actually wait for my answer. Actually do what I say, even if it's not what you would have chosen. Evening examination. Before bed, ask yourself, where did I take back control today? Where did I climb back on the throne? Where did I make my own plans without consulting Jesus? Not to beat yourself up, but to notice, to confess, to surrender again. Surrender, he said, is something you do once and then practice daily. You make the initial decision to get off the throne, and then you make the daily decision to stay off the throne. If you do this, Jesus said, if you commit to real surrender, not partial surrender, not conditional surrender, but complete surrender, I promise you 3 things. 1, you'll never regret it. You might have moments of fear, he said, moments of doubt, moments where you wonder if you made the right choice, but you'll never ultimately regret surrendering to me, because my plans for you are better than anything you could plan for yourself. 2, you'll discover who you really are. Right now, your identity is tied up in what you do, what you've built, what you've achieved, he said. But when you surrender all of that to me, you'll discover your true identity, not as an actor, not as a platform, but as my beloved child. And that identity is more solid, more secure, more satisfying than anything else could ever be. 3, when you stand at heaven's gates, you'll hear well done, because you won't be meeting a stranger, he said. You'll be meeting the Lord you've been following, the Lord you've been surrendering to, the Lord you've been trusting, and I'll welcome you home not because you were perfect, but because you were mine, truly, completely mine. We were back in my apartment. Jesus walked to the 5th door. Ready for the next difference? He asked. I felt like I'd been through a war. The first 4 differences had stripped away every illusion I'd had about my relationship with Jesus. They'd shown me that I'd been doing religion instead of relationship, that I'd been selective in my obedience, that I'd been theoretical in my love, that I'd been partial in my surrender. But I also felt something else. Hope. Because Jesus wasn't showing me these things to condemn me. He was showing me these things to free me, to help me move from pretending to know him to actually knowing him. Yes, I said, I'm ready. The 5th difference, he said, is about humility, and it's going to show you whether you're truly following me or just using me to build your own kingdom. He opened the 5th door, and I stepped through, wondering what devastating truth I was about to discover next. Because if the first 4 differences had already shaken everything I thought I knew about faith, what would the final 3 reveal? And more importantly, would I actually change? Would I actually live what I was learning? Or would I be like the people at the gates, knowing the truth, but never actually surrendering to it? I was about to find out. So the 5th door opened into a hall of mirrors. But these weren't ordinary mirrors. They showed not just physical reflections, but the hidden motivations behind every action, every word, every spiritual thing people did. And what I saw made me want to run. This is the 5th difference, Jesus said, his voice carrying a sadness that made my chest ache. Between those who truly know me and those who only think they do. It's about humility, but not the kind of humility people perform. The kind of humility that reveals what's really in your heart. I looked into the first mirror and saw a man praying publicly. His words were beautiful, eloquent, moving. People around him were nodding, some were crying. It looked like genuine worship, but the mirror showed what was underneath. He wasn't praying to Jesus, he was performing for them. Every word was calculated for maximum impact. Every pause was timed for effect. He was building his reputation as a prayer warrior, not actually talking to God. But Lord, I protested, maybe he's just gifted at public prayer. Maybe. Look at his heart, Jesus interrupted. I'm not showing you his actions. I'm showing you his motivations. And his motivation isn't to connect with me. It's to impress them. The scene shifted to a woman posting on social media about her quiet time with Jesus. She'd taken a carefully staged photo Bible open, coffee artfully placed, morning light streaming through the window. The caption was about how much she loved spending time with God, but the mirror showed the truth. She'd spent more time staging the photo than actually reading the Bible. She'd crafted the caption to sound spiritual, to get likes, to build her brand as a woman of faith. The post wasn't about Jesus. It was about her image. This is the disease of our age, Jesus said quietly. People using me to build their own kingdoms, performing spirituality for an audience, doing ministry to make a name for themselves, and calling it serving God. The hall of mirrors shifted, and I saw 3 distinct sections, each showing a different type of false humility. The first section showed people who performed humility while being deeply proud. I saw a pastor who constantly talked about how unworthy he was, how he was just a servant, how it's not about me, it's about Jesus. But the mirror showed his heart. Every self-deprecating comment was designed to make people think more highly of him. Every humble statement was a manipulation to gain more influence. He controlled his church with an iron fist. He couldn't handle criticism. He surrounded himself with people who praised him. He built his entire ministry around his personality, his vision, his leadership. But he called it servant leadership and humble ministry. I saw a worship leader who sang songs about being broken and surrendered while the mirror showed her heart. She was furious when someone else was asked to lead worship. She was jealous of other worship leaders who got more attention. She measured her worth by how many people told her she was anointed. Her worship wasn't about Jesus. It was about the feeling she got when people praised her voice, her passion, her gift. She turned worship into a performance, and she was the star. This is performative humility, Jesus said, using the language of humility while being deeply proud, talking about being a servant while demanding to be served, claiming it's all about Jesus's while making everything about yourself. The second section showed people who felt humble only in comparison to others. I saw a man who considered himself humble because he wasn't as proud as other people. He looked at the arrogant, the boastful, the obviously self-centered and thought, at least I'm not like them. I'm humble. But the mirror showed his heart. He was constantly comparing himself to others, constantly measuring himself against people he considered worse than him. His humility was actually pride in disguise, pride that he wasn't as proud as others. I saw a woman who felt spiritual because she wasn't as worldly as other Christians. She didn't watch those shows. She didn't listen to that music. She didn't dress like that. She didn't compromise like they did. But the mirror showed her heart. She was deeply judgmental, deeply self-righteous. She felt superior to other believers because of her standards. Her holiness was actually pride dressed up as purity. This is comparative humility, Jesus said, feeling humble only because you're comparing yourself to people you consider beneath you. But that's not humility. That's the Pharisee praying, "Thank God I'm not like other people." It's pride with a religious mask. The third section showed people who pretended to be humble while fishing for compliments. I saw a woman who posted about her ministry work but framed it as, "I'm not good at this, but," or "I'm so inadequate, but God used me anyway." The words sounded humble, but the mirror showed her heart. She was fishing for people to contradict her, to tell her how gifted she was, how anointed, how special. I saw a man who constantly downplayed his accomplishments in a way that actually drew more attention to them. "Oh, it was nothing. I'm sure anyone could have done it. I just happened to be in the right place." But the mirror showed he was waiting for people to insist that no, it was special. He was special. He was uniquely gifted. This is false modesty, Jesus said. Pretending to be humble as a way to get people to praise you. It's manipulation. It's pride pretending to be humility so it can receive even more praise. So, what does real humility look like? I asked, feeling increasingly sick as I recognized myself in every single type of false humility. The mirrors shifted, and I saw different people. People who had real humility. And what I saw challenged everything I thought humility meant. I saw a man who had genuine gifts, genuine talents, genuine accomplishments, but he didn't downplay them or fish for compliments. He simply acknowledged them as gifts from God and used them to serve others without needing recognition. When people praised him, he didn't deflect with false modesty. He said, "Thank you. God has been gracious to give me this ability, and I'm glad I could use it to help." No performance, no fishing for more praise, just honest acknowledgement and gratitude. That's real humility, Jesus said, not pretending you don't have gifts, not fishing for compliments by downplaying them, just honestly acknowledging what I've given you and using it to serve others without needing applause. I saw a woman who served in hidden ways. She cleaned the church bathrooms. She arrived early to set up chairs. She stayed late to put things away. No one knew she did these things. She didn't post about them. She didn't mention them. She just did them because they needed to be done. When someone else got credit for something she'd done, she didn't correct them. When someone else was praised for work she'd contributed to, she didn't feel the need to make sure everyone knew her part. She was genuinely content to serve without recognition. That's real humility, Jesus said, serving without needing credit, working without needing recognition, being content to be hidden because you're not doing it for human applause, you're doing it for me. I saw a man who had been given a platform, a following, influence, but he used it to point people to Jesus, not to himself. When people wanted to follow him, he redirected them to follow Jesus. When people praised him, he turned the conversation to what God was doing. When people wanted to make him the center, he consistently moved himself to the side, not with false modesty, not with performative humility, just with genuine desire for Jesus to be glorified, not himself. That's real humility, Jesus said, using whatever platform I give you to point people to me, not to yourself, being willing to decrease so I can increase, being genuinely more concerned with my glory than your own reputation. He gave me what he called a humility test. The mirrors transformed, and I saw my own life reflected back at me. But this time, I could see the motivations behind everything I did, every spiritual thing, every act of service, every public statement about faith, and what I saw devastated me. Question 1, why do you do what you do? The mirror showed me the truth. So much of what I did, even good things, even ministry things, was motivated by a desire for recognition, for approval, for building my reputation. I posted about my faith on social media. But why? To point people to Jesus? Or to build my brand as a Christian actor? I talked about my spiritual journey in interviews. But why? To give God glory? Or to make myself look deep and thoughtful? I served in ministry. But why? To help people? Or to be seen as someone who serves? The honest answers made me sick. When you do something good, Jesus said gently, and no one knows about it, and no one ever will know about it, how do you feel, satisfied or disappointed? I knew the answer. I felt disappointed because I wanted recognition. I wanted credit. I wanted people to know I was doing good things. That's the test, he said. Real humility is content to serve in secret. False humility needs an audience. Question 2. How do you respond to criticism? The mirror showed me my patterns. When someone criticized me, my work, my faith, my choices, how did I respond? I got defensive. I justified myself. I explained why they were wrong. I felt hurt, angry, offended. I wanted to prove them wrong, to show them they'd misjudged me. When you're criticized, Jesus said, do you immediately defend yourself? Do you need to prove you're right? Do you feel threatened when someone questions you? I nodded, ashamed. That's pride, he said. Real humility can receive criticism without being destroyed by it. Real humility can consider whether there's truth in the criticism without needing to defend itself. Real humility is secure enough in my love that it doesn't need to prove itself to others. Question 3. How do you feel when others succeed? This one hit hardest. The mirror showed me moments when other actors got roles I wanted, when other Christians got platforms I wished I had, when other people were praised for things I thought I could do better, and I saw the truth in my heart: jealousy, envy, comparison, a feeling that their success somehow diminished me. When someone else succeeds, Jesus said, especially in an area you care about, how do you feel? Genuinely happy for them? Or secretly jealous? Jealous, I admitted quietly. That's pride, he said. Real humility can celebrate others' success without feeling threatened. Real humility doesn't see life as a competition where someone else's win is your loss. Real humility is secure enough in my love and my plan for you that you can genuinely rejoice when others are blessed. The mirrors faded, and we were back at the gates. I saw another person approaching a man who had been a famous Christian leader, someone with a massive platform, someone who had led thousands to faith. But when he reached the gates, Jesus said, "I never knew you." "But Lord," the man protested, "I preached your gospel to millions. I built a ministry. I wrote books. I led people to you. How can you say you never knew me?" "Did you?" Jesus asked quietly. "Did you lead them to me, or did you lead them to yourself?" The man's face went pale. I preached about you. I talked about you. Everything I did was for you." "Was it?" Jesus asked. "Or was it for your platform, your reputation, your legacy? Did you use me to build your kingdom, or did you use your platform to build mine?" The mirror appeared, showing the man's heart throughout his ministry. Every sermon calculated for maximum impact, every book written with bestseller lists in mind, every decision made based on what would grow his platform, not what would glorify God. He'd built an empire, but he'd built it for himself and slapped Jesus' name on it. "You used me," Jesus said, and the sadness in his voice was crushing. "You used my name, my gospel, my message to build your own kingdom. You made yourself the center and called it ministry. You sought your own glory and called it serving me. But I believed in you," the man protested. "I taught truth, I helped people. You taught about me," Jesus said. "But you never actually knew me, because if you knew me, you would have been content to be hidden. You would have been willing to decrease so I could increase. You would have used your platform to point people to me, not to yourself." The man was pulled away from the gates, and I felt tears streaming down my face. "This is why humility matters," Jesus said to me. "Not because I'm insecure and need you to make yourself small, but because pride is the root of all sin. Pride is what makes you think you can be your own God. Pride is what keeps you from truly surrendering to me. Pride is what makes you use me instead of serve me. People who truly know me," he continued, "are humble, not with false modesty, not with performative humility, but with genuine humility that comes from understanding who I am and who they are. They know they're loved, so they don't need to prove themselves. They know they're secure in me, so they don't need to build their own kingdoms. They know I'm enough, so they don't need human applause. And people who don't know me," he said, "might do impressive things in my name. They might build ministries, write books, lead thousands, but they're doing it for themselves. They're using me to build their own kingdoms. And they call it serving God because they've convinced themselves that their glory and my glory are the same thing." Jesus turned to face me fully. "Jonathan, I'm going to give you a challenge, a way to test whether you have real humility or just performative humility." "What is it?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "For the next 30 days, he said, I want you to do 3 things. 1, serve in secret. Find something to do that serves others, but that no one will know you did," he said. "Clean something, give something, help someone, but don't tell anyone. Don't post about it. Don't even hint at it. Just do it and let it stay between you and me. And notice how you feel," he continued. "Do you feel satisfied? Or do you feel frustrated that no one knows? That's the test. Real humility is content to serve in secret. False humility needs an audience. 2, celebrate someone else's success. Find someone who's succeeding in an area you care about," he said. "Someone who got something you wanted, someone who's being praised for something you wish you were praised for, and genuinely celebrate them, publicly, specifically, without any hint of comparison or self-promotion. And notice how you feel," he continued. "Does it feel natural, or does it feel like you're dying inside? That's the test. Real humility can celebrate others without feeling threatened. False humility sees others' success as a personal loss. 3. Receive criticism without defending yourself. When someone criticizes you, your work, your faith, your choices, don't defend yourself. He said, don't explain, don't justify, just listen. Consider whether there's truth in what they're saying. Thank them for their perspective, and let it go. And notice how you feel. He continued. Can you receive criticism without being destroyed by it? Or do you immediately need to prove you're right? That's the test. Real humility can receive criticism because it's secure in my love. False humility needs to defend itself because it's insecure. If you do this, Jesus said, if you commit to real humility, not performative humility, not false modesty, but genuine humility, I promise you 3 things. 1, you'll experience freedom. Right now, you're exhausted from trying to manage your reputation, from needing people to think well of you, from building and protecting your image, he said. But humility will free you from all of that. You'll stop caring so much about what people think because you'll be secure in what I think. 2, you'll hear my voice more clearly. Pride is loud, he said. It drowns out my voice with its constant need for recognition, its constant comparison, its constant self-promotion. But humility is quiet, and in that quiet, you'll hear me more clearly than you ever have before. 3, you'll actually enjoy serving me. Right now, serving me is exhausting because you're trying to serve me and build your own kingdom at the same time, he said. But when you let go of your kingdom, when you stop trying to make a name for yourself, serving me becomes joy, pure joy, because you're finally free to just love me and love others without needing anything in return. We were back in my apartment. Jesus walked to the 6th door. Ready for the next difference? He asked. I felt like I'd been stripped bare. The first 5 differences had exposed every false thing about my faith. They'd shown me that I'd been performing instead of relating, selecting instead of obeying, theorizing instead of loving, negotiating instead of surrendering, and promoting myself instead of being humble. But I also felt something else, a strange lightness, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't know I was carrying, and it was finally being lifted. Yes, I said, I'm ready. The 6th difference, he said, is about perseverance, and it's going to show you whether your faith is real or just emotional. He opened the 6th door and I stepped through, wondering what devastating truth I was about to discover next. Because if the first 5 differences had already exposed every false thing about my faith, what would the final 2 reveal? And more importantly, would I actually change? Would I actually live what I was learning? Or would I be like the people at the gates, knowing the truth but never actually embodying it? I was about to find out. So the 6th door opened into a long corridor. Not a hallway with walls, but like a path stretching into the distance. And along this path I saw people, thousands of them, all walking, all moving forward. At first, this is the 6th difference, Jesus said, his voice carrying both sadness and hope, between those who truly know me and those who only think they do. It's about perseverance, about finishing, about whether your faith is real or just emotional. I watched as people started the journey with enthusiasm. They were running, some of them, singing, excited, full of passion and energy. They looked like they could go forever. But as I watched, the path got harder, steeper, rockier, and one by one, people started to slow down, to struggle, to stop. What's happening? I asked. Life, Jesus said simply. This is what happens when the initial excitement fades and following me becomes difficult. This is where you see who truly knows me and who was just caught up in emotion. The scene shifted, and I saw 3 groups of people who thought they were persevering but weren't. The first group started strong. They were the most enthusiastic, the most passionate, the most vocal about their faith. They made big commitments, they took bold stands, they burned bright, but they burned out fast. I saw a young man who had a powerful conversion experience. He was on fire for God. He told everyone about Jesus. He went to every church event. He read his Bible for hours. He prayed constantly. But 6 months later, he was gone. The passion had faded. The excitement had worn off. Following Jesus had become routine, and routine wasn't exciting enough for him. So he drifted away, looking for the next emotional high. This is the sprinter, Jesus said. All passion, no endurance. They mistake emotional intensity for genuine faith. They think being on fire for me means having constant feelings. But when the feelings fade, and they always do, they quit. I saw a woman who made a dramatic commitment to ministry. She quit her job. She sold her possessions. She moved across the country to serve in missions. Everyone praised her sacrifice, her dedication, her faith. But a year later, she was back, disillusioned, burned out, angry at God for not making it easier, for not sustaining the emotional high she'd felt when she first committed. Sprinters, Jesus said, confuse intensity with faithfulness. They think dramatic gestures prove their devotion, but real faith isn't measured by how you start, it's measured by how you finish. The second group kept going as long as things went well, as long as God was blessing them, as long as their prayers were being answered, as long as life made sense. But when things got hard, they stopped. I saw a man who followed Jesus faithfully for years. He was in church every Sunday, he tithed, he served, he seemed solid, but then his business failed. His prayers for provision seemed to go unanswered. His financial situation became desperate, and he walked away, bitter and angry. I did everything right, he said. I followed all the rules. I gave my money. I served faithfully. And this is how God treats me? I'm done. This is the conditional perseverer, Jesus said. They follow me as long as I meet their expectations, as long as I bless them the way they think I should. But when I don't, when life gets hard, when their prayers aren't answered the way they want, they quit. I saw a woman who loved Jesus deeply until her daughter died. She'd prayed for healing. She'd believed for a miracle. She'd done everything she knew to do. But her daughter died anyway, and she couldn't reconcile a good God with that kind of pain. So she walked away, unable to trust a God who would let her suffer like that. Conditional perseverers, Jesus said, have faith in me as long as I do what they want. But when I don't, when my ways don't make sense to them, when I allow suffering they can't understand, they quit because their faith was never really in me, it was in their idea of me. And when I didn't match their idea, they rejected me. The third group didn't dramatically quit. They just slowly drifted away. They got distracted, busy, caught up in other things. And gradually, imperceptibly, they stopped following. I saw a man who started strong, but then his career took off. He got busier, more successful, more consumed with work. Church became occasional, prayer became rushed, Bible reading became non-existent. He didn't decide to stop following Jesus, he just got distracted. And the distance grew until he was so far from the path he couldn't even see it anymore. This is the distracted, Jesus said. They don't reject me, they just slowly replace me. With career, with relationships, with hobbies, with comfort, with 1,000 good things that become ultimate things. I saw a woman who loved Jesus but also loved the world. She wanted both. She tried to walk the path while also chasing everything the world offered. And gradually, the world won. Not because she chose it over Jesus, but because she tried to choose both, and you can't. The distracted, Jesus said, are the most tragic, because they never meant to leave. They just got pulled away, bit by bit, until they were gone, and they often don't even realize they've left until it's too late. So what does real perseverance look like? I asked, feeling the weight of how many times I'd been a sprinter, a conditional perseverer, a distracted follower. The scene shifted, and I saw different people, people who were truly persevering, and what I saw challenged everything I thought perseverance meant. I saw an elderly woman who had followed Jesus for 70 years, not with constant emotional highs, not with dramatic gestures, just with steady, faithful, daily obedience. She'd walked through the death of her husband, the loss of a child, financial hardship, health problems, loneliness, but she was still walking, still following, still trusting, not because life had been easy, not because God had given her everything she wanted, but because she knew Him, really knew Him. And she trusted Him, even when she didn't understand Him. That's real perseverance, Jesus said, not sprinting, not conditional, not distracted, just steady, faithful, daily choosing to follow me through good times and bad, through answered prayers and unanswered ones, through blessing and suffering. I saw a man who had been betrayed by his church, hurt by Christians, disappointed by leaders he'd trusted. He had every reason to walk away, every justification to quit. But he didn't. He found a different church. He forgave the people who hurt him. He kept following Jesus, even though Jesus' people had failed him. That's real perseverance, Jesus said. Not quitting when my people fail you, not confusing my people with me, not letting human disappointment destroy your faith in me. I saw a young woman who had been following Jesus for only 3 years. She didn't have decades of faithfulness behind her, but she had something else, a determination to keep going, no matter what. She'd lost friends because of her faith. She'd been mocked at work. She'd struggled with doubt and questions. But she kept showing up, kept praying, kept obeying, kept trusting, not perfectly, not without struggle, but consistently, persistently, faithfully. That's real perseverance, Jesus said. Not about how long you've been following me, but about whether you keep following me even when it's hard, even when it costs you something, even when you don't feel like it. He gave me what he called a perseverance test. The corridor transformed into a mirror, and I saw my own journey reflected back at me. The times I'd started strong and faded, the times I'd followed conditionally, the times I'd gotten distracted. Question 1. What happens to your faith when the feelings fade? The mirror showed me the truth. My faith had been largely driven by feelings. When I felt close to God, I was passionate, committed, engaged. When I didn't feel close to God, I drifted, struggled, questioned. Real perseverance, Jesus said, doesn't depend on feelings. It's a choice you make regardless of how you feel. You follow me on the days you feel close to me and on the days you don't. You obey me when it's exciting and when it's boring. You trust me when you sense my presence and when you don't. Question 2. What happens to your faith when God doesn't do what you want? The mirror showed me moments when I'd prayed for things that didn't happen, opportunities that didn't come, relationships that didn't work out, prayers that seemed to go unanswered. And I saw my response. Disappointment, doubt, distance, a pulling back from God because he hadn't met my expectations. Real perseverance, Jesus said, trust me even when I don't do what you want, even when I don't answer your prayers the way you think I should, even when my ways don't make sense to you. It says, I don't understand, but I trust you anyway. Question 3. What competes with me for your attention? This one hurt. The mirror showed me all the things that pulled me away from Jesus. Not bad things necessarily, just things that became more important than him. My career, my relationships, my comfort, my entertainment, my plans, my reputation. Real perseverance, Jesus said, keeps me first. Not perfectly, you'll always struggle with competing priorities, but consistently. You keep coming back to me. You keep choosing me over the things that try to replace me. Jesus walked to the final door. This is the last difference, he said. The one that ties everything together, the one that reveals whether everything else is real or just performance. He opened the door, and I saw a garden. But not just any garden. I could see into the soil, into the roots, into the very life source of every plant. This is about fruit, Jesus said. Real fruit. The kind that proves your faith is genuine. I saw 2 trees that looked identical from the outside. Same size, same shape, same appearance of health. But when Jesus showed me their roots, I saw the difference. The first tree had shallow roots. It looked good on the surface, but there was no depth, no real life source. It was surviving on surface water, on favorable conditions, but it wouldn't last. The second tree had deep roots. They went down far into the soil, finding water even in drought, finding nutrients even in poor soil. This tree would last, would survive, would bear fruit year after year. This is the difference, Jesus said, between those who truly know me and those who only think they do. It's not about appearance. It's about roots. It's about fruit. It's about what's actually growing in your life as a result of knowing me. Let me show you the fruit I'm looking for, Jesus said. The fruit that proves your faith is real. Fruit 1, transformation. Real faith changes you, he said. Not overnight, not perfectly, but progressively. You become more like me over time. More loving, more patient, more kind, more humble, more surrendered. The mirror showed me my life over the past 5 years, and I had to admit, I hadn't changed much. I was still struggling with the same sins, the same weaknesses, the same patterns. I knew more, but I wasn't different. If you've known me for years, Jesus said gently, and you're not different than you were when you started, something's wrong. Real faith produces real change, not perfection, but direction. You're moving toward me, becoming more like me, even if it's slow. Fruit 2, love for others. Real faith makes you love people, he said. Not just people who are easy to love, all people, even difficult people, even people who hurt you, even people who are different from you. The mirror showed me my relationships, and I saw the truth. My love was still selective, still conditional, still limited to people who were like me or who benefited me. If you claim to know me, Jesus said, but you don't love people, your faith isn't real, because I am love. And if you truly know me, my love will flow through you to others. Fruit 3, obedience. Real faith produces obedience, he said. Not perfect obedience, but consistent obedience. You hear my voice and you do what I say, not always immediately, not always perfectly, but eventually, consistently. The mirror showed me all the times I'd heard his voice and ignored it, all the promptings I'd rationalized away, all the convictions I'd negotiated with. If you claim to know me, Jesus said, but you consistently ignore my voice, your faith isn't real, because knowing me means following me, and following me means obeying me. Fruit 4, perseverance. Real faith lasts, he said. It endures. It doesn't quit when things get hard. It doesn't fade when feelings fade. It doesn't drift when distractions come. The mirror showed me my pattern of starting strong and fading, of being passionate and then drifting, of committing and then getting distracted. If your faith only lasts as long as it's exciting or easy, Jesus said, it's not real faith. Real faith perseveres through hard times, through dry times, through times when you don't feel anything. It keeps going because it's rooted in me, not in circumstances or feelings. The garden faded, and we were back at the gates one final time. I saw the last person approaching someone who looked like they should enter. They'd done everything right externally. They'd been religious, active, committed. But when they reached the gates, Jesus said, I never knew you. But Lord, they protested, look at my life. Look at everything I did. Look at my ministry, my service, my sacrifice. I'm not looking at your activity, Jesus said. I'm looking at your fruit, and there is no fruit. You did many things in my name, but you never actually knew me. And because you didn't know me, you never changed. You never loved the way I love. You never obeyed the way I asked. You never persevered through difficulty. You had the appearance of faith, but no fruit. And fruit is what reveals whether faith is real. The person was pulled away from the gates, and I felt the full weight of everything I'd seen. This is why fruit matters, Jesus said to me, not because I'm keeping score, not because you have to earn your way in, but because fruit is the evidence of real faith. It's the proof that you actually know me, that my life is actually flowing through you, that your faith is real and not just theoretical. We were back in my apartment. All 7 doors were visible now, standing in a row, each one representing a difference between those who truly knew Jesus and those who only thought they did. Conversation versus performance, obedience versus rationalization, love versus theory, surrender versus control, humility versus pride, perseverance versus quitting, fruit versus appearance. Jesus said, his voice carrying both gravity and grace, you've seen everything I wanted to show you. You've seen the gates. You've seen the people who were turned away. You've seen the differences between those who truly know me and those who only think they do. And you've seen yourself, he continued. You've seen where you've been performing instead of relating, where you've been rationalizing instead of obeying, where you've been theoretical instead of loving, where you've been controlling instead of surrendering, where you've been proud instead of humble, where you've been quitting instead of persevering, where you've had appearance instead of fruit. I nodded, unable to speak because of the tears streaming down my face. Now you have a choice, he said. The most important choice you'll ever make. Not whether you believe in me, you already do, but whether you'll actually know me, whether you'll move from religion to relationship, from performance to reality, from appearance to fruit. What do I do? I asked, my voice breaking. 3 things, he said. Starting today, 1. Stop performing and start relating. Spend time with me every day, he said, not to check a box, not to be a good Christian, but because you actually want to know me. Talk to me like I'm real, because I am. Bring me your real self, not your religious self. Let me into your actual life, not just your spiritual life. 2. Obey immediately. When you hear my voice, he said, obey. Don't rationalize. Don't negotiate. Don't delay. Just obey. Start with the thing I've been asking you to do that you've been avoiding. Do it today. And then practice immediate obedience in small things every day. 3. Let me produce fruit. Stop trying to manufacture spiritual fruit, he said. Stop performing. Stop pretending. Just stay connected to me. Abide in me, and I'll produce fruit through you. Real fruit, the kind that lasts. The kind that proves your faith is real. If you do these 3 things, he said, everything else will follow. The love will come. The surrender will come. The humility will come. The perseverance will come. Because they're all fruit of knowing me. You can't manufacture them. But when you truly know me, they grow naturally. And if you do this, Jesus said, I promise you, when you stand at heaven's gates, you won't be shocked to hear, well done. You'll recognize me, because you've been walking with me, talking with me, knowing me. And I'll welcome you home not as a stranger, but as someone I know, someone I've always known, someone who's mine. He walked to the door of my apartment. I'm giving you this vision for a reason, he said, not just for yourself, but for others. Tell them what you've seen. Warn them about the gates closing. Help them understand the difference between knowing about me and actually knowing me. But Lord, I said, what if they don't believe me? What if they think I'm crazy? What if some won't believe you, he said. Some will think you're crazy. Some will criticize you. But others will recognize truth when they hear it, because I'll be speaking to them through you, and they'll be grateful you had the courage to tell them. Will you tell them? He asked. I thought about my platform, my reputation, the risk of being too intense, too religious, too much, the fear of being misunderstood. But I also thought about the gates, about the people being turned away, about the words, I never knew you, about the difference between religion and relationship. Yes, I said, I'll tell them. Good, he said. And then he was gone. I'm sitting here now, recording this. It's been, I don't even know how long. Hours? It felt like hours. The sun is coming up. I can see it through my window, and I want you to know I'm not the same person I was yesterday. Not because I became perfect. I haven't. I still struggle. I still fail. I still have to repent and return. But I'm different. Because I'm not performing anymore. I'm relating. I'm not just knowing about Jesus. I'm actually knowing him. I'm not just doing religious things. I'm walking with a person I love. And I'm telling you, right now, about the vision, about the gates, about the difference between religion and relationship. Some of you will think I'm crazy. Some of you will criticize me. But others are hungry for what I'm describing. Because you've been feeling the same emptiness I felt. The same sense that something's missing in your faith. And you're discovering what I discovered. That knowing Jesus, really knowing him, changes everything. So now I have a question for you. The same question Jesus asked me. Do you truly know him? Or do you just know about him? Are you performing or relating? Are you rationalizing or obeying? Are you theoretical or loving? Are you controlling or surrendering? Are you proud or humble? Are you quitting or persevering? Do you have fruit or just appearance? Because one day, maybe soon, maybe not, you'll stand at those gates, and you'll hear one of 2 things: I never knew you, or welcome home. And the difference between those 2 outcomes isn't how much you know about Jesus. It's whether you actually know him. So I'm asking you, do you know him? Really? If you're not sure, there's still time. The gates haven't closed yet. You can start today. Right now. Stop performing and start relating. Stop rationalizing and start obeying. Stop theorizing and start loving. Talk to him like he's real. Because he is. Obey him when he speaks. Because he does. Let him change you. Because he will. And when you stand at the gates, you'll recognize him. Not as a stranger, but as the one you've been walking with all along, the one you know, and who knows you. I'm going to do what he asked me to do. Today, the relationship I need to repair, the conversation I need to have, the surrender I need to make. I'm not waiting anymore. And I'm asking you, will you join me? Will you stop pretending and start being real? Will you stop performing and start relating? Will you stop knowing about Jesus and start actually knowing him? Because the gates are still open, but they won't be forever. And the difference between I never knew you and welcome home is whether we actually know him, not just know about him, but know him. That's it. That's what I saw. That's what he told me. That's what I'm telling you. I don't know what happens next. I don't know how people will respond. I don't know if this will cost me something, but I know this. I can't keep quiet about it. The gates are closing, and too many people think they're ready when they're not. So, I'm telling you, while there's still time, know him, really know him, not just about him. God bless.